Hey guys, how you doing tonight? I'm almost on time tonight. Ran into a few problems because I went to go grab my tripod and found out that my husband took my tripod to town with him. And then I got all the way out here with my replacement tripod and all my other stuff and realized I didn't have my phone. So I'm on a roll today. I'm also dealing with a little bit of sore throat because, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, it's also allergy season and everything is in bloom. And so my allergies have been acting up and it's finally catching up with my throat. But I could still talk for the most part. I'll probably be even more inclined to keep it short just because I don't want to overdo it. And then I don't know what the heck my neighbors are doing. I think they're having some kind of a birthday party because they just, I got ants biting my feet. I don't know, they just drove golf carts up and down the road with balloons tied to them, and one of the kids is driving a four-wheeler or something up and down their driveway. So if you hear all of that happening in the background, that's what's going on there. Okay, so anyway, tonight I just wanted to do a quick little thing talking about starting seeds. I know a lot of you have either started your seeds for the spring and summer, or you're getting ready to start your seeds. So this is something, I want to talk about, especially if you guys are just now ordering seeds and trying to figure out what the heck to do with them now that you have them. If you are looking for seeds, I still have a large selection of seeds available at kitchenbotanicals.com. So please feel free to go and check that out. Anyway, a couple things that you want to look at when it comes to starting your seeds. You want a good seed starting mix. You have to watch out for your soils, like potting soil, garden soil. Those are typically very heavy, and they're not designed to be used straight. They're designed to be mixed with your ground soil, mixed with something like perlite, vermiculite to kind of lighten it. In fact, let me grab my vermiculite just so you know kind of what I'm talking about. I have a giant bucket of it. Okay. I do mix my own seed starting mix, and I can talk about that. If we have time, I'll talk about it tonight. But this is vermiculite. It is kind of like a mineral. It almost feels like foam. It's very fine. Perlite is the stuff that you see in your mixes that looks like styrofoam. It is not actually styrofoam. It is volcanic rock. But both of them are organic options. Really, all they're going to do is they're going to help to improve drainage. A lot of folks that do like hydroponics, I think even aquaponics, will even start their seeds just in straight vermiculite. I use the vermiculite in my soil mix because I like it because it's small and it's light. You can also, when you are starting your seeds in your seed starting trays, if you don't want to go back over and cover your seeds with soil, you can cover them with vermiculite. It's going to help to keep those seeds moist. It's going to create a very light covering over the seeds, so the seeds don't have any heavy soil they have to push up through. And it's also going to create a sterile environment to cut down on any mold or fungal issues that you might run into trying to start your seeds. Because we do need to keep our seeds moist, and a lot of times that invites mold to grow on our trays, and we don't generally want that because that can cause issues for our seedlings. Anyway, so you want something that's nice and airy. The other thing you have to watch for is a lot of these, even like the potting mixes and things like that, use a lot of bark filler. And if you want to use a potting mix, you may need to kind of sift out that mulch so that you still have something that's very fine that isn't going to compete with your seeds, trying to push up out of the soil. If you get a specific seed starting mix, you should not have that problem. They should not be using bark filler for your seed soil, for your seed starting mix. A lot of the stuff that you buy at the store is peat moss based. You get the peat pellets like in those Jiffy packs. The only thing is I'm trying to get away from peat moss because it's not a sustainable product. They're over harvesting the peat bogs, and it takes a very long time for those peat bogs to regenerate. So I'm going to coconut coir, and it is a byproduct of the coconut industry. And you can see if I can hold that up for you guys. It's very, very loose. It absorbs moisture very readily. It's getting all over me. And one thing I like about it is if you've ever noticed with your containers that have the peat moss and they get dried out, once that peat moss gets dried out, the water just beads off of it. And then you almost have to soak the container to get it to start accepting water again. I do not have that issue with the coir. I will still kind of mist or very gently water just so that I don't overflow my containers. But it soaks in that moisture a lot better. It's very fine. It is a higher pH. It's more neutral than peat moss. So it unfortunately doesn't work real well like for blueberries and stuff that like a lot of acidity. But it is perfect for a seed starting mix. And I know a lot of people that will use just the straight coir for seed starting. You can even get coir pellets now. There's a lot of coir products out there on the market that you can use for seed starting if you don't want to use a specific seed starting mix. The mix that I do, I end up doing 4 parts coir, 1 part mushroom compost, 1 part worm casings. Hang on, I gotta think about this for a minute. 1 part vermiculite, and then like a 1/2 part of azomite. That's just like minerals that just help to add more nutrients to the soil. So it ends up being a pretty good mix for me. I did have to play with the formula a little bit because back in the fall I went a little too heavy on the compost, and I think that the acidity was, or the pH was too low. And so I got very, very poor germination, but I've been getting really good germination since I kind of increased the coir and decreased the compost that I'm using. And then I turn around and use that potting mix for all of my containers. So it's not just specifically for seed starting. All right, now when it actually comes to starting your seeds, you want to take a look at the back of your seed packet. And I know I've got a glare here. All right. This is a botanical interest seed packet, which is largely what I sell on my Kitchen Botanicals website. But on the back of your seed packet, or most of your seed packets should give you some very basic information. That will include the seed depth, the days to emerge. So you're going to notice, especially if you're starting a variety of seeds, some things are going to pop up like within 3 days. Some things are going to take 2 or 3 weeks to germinate. So you don't want to give up on those seeds too early just because they didn't come up as fast as the other stuff. All right. Especially like peppers are notorious for taking a long time to germinate, and takes them even longer to get established. In fact, I'll show you guys. These are Dawdle peppers that I started at, geez, and they're covered in ants. Oh, you can't garden without bugs. That's all there is to it. So I've got a nest of ants in that tray. All right. Anyway, I think they're carpenter ants, so at least they're not fire ants. But boy, they still will bite the heck out of you if they feel threatened. Good gravy. Okay. So there's my Dawdle peppers that now need to be repotted because I knocked most of the soil out of the container. And then, let's see, my cherry tomatoes are not a good example because the cherry tomatoes also take a long time to get established. Hang on, I'll grab one of my Floridades. Stick my microphone up here for a second. Okay, so A Floridade is a medium to large size tomato that was actually developed by the University of Florida in the 70s, specifically for growing in hot and humid environments. I was actually really impressed with how quickly this grows. I need to look it up. I believe it's a determinate variety. I can't remember off the top of my head. I feel like I'm getting bit by another ant. I really need to spread some beneficial nematodes because I obviously have an ant problem. Okay, and then these are my Dawdle Peppers, which were started at the same time. And I am getting ready to plant these, and that will help kind of stimulate some of their growth. But that just shows you just how long it takes peppers to get established. I'm not overly worried because peppers are one of the things that will survive Florida summers, even though they may or may not produce. These are Dawdle Peppers. Sorry, I'm still getting bit by fire ants on my feet and carpenter ants on my fingers and okay. Oh, and I forgot my microphone, so I don't even know if you guys can hear me. Okay. Anyway, the Dawdle Peppers are also considered a Florida native. They were developed in St. Petersburg. I don't remember if it was actually Russian immigrants that developed them, but they were St. Petersburg, Florida. But they were developed for Florida. They are a hot pepper. And so I expect them to actually do really well through the summer here, which is why I'm growing them. Anyway, my seed packet. Okay, so seed depth is really important because and like this is basil, it only has a 1/4 inch seed depth. So really, like, I could go maybe as deep as my fingernail, but usually I will just kind of tamp the soil down. I'll put the seeds in and then I'll water, and that soil will kind of end up covering the seeds back up when I water, and that's really all I end up doing. If I want to, I could throw some more or I could throw some vermiculite over the top just to make sure they're covered. Because I have had issues with squirrels and birds coming in and eating my seeds if they can see them on the top. But you have some others that like a deeper, like to be planted deeper. Like a couple things I can think of in particular are beans and corn. If you don't get them deep enough, then they, and even tomatoes kind of like to be a little bit deep too. They need to really be able to grab onto the soil so that they can create a nice strong foundation for themselves. But things like peas do not like to be planted very deep, because if you put too much soil on top of them, even though they're a very large seed, they don't have a lot of energy in them. And so when they need that energy to push up out of the soil, and if they can't get it, then they'll just die out before they even emerge. So your soil depth is important. If you don't want to use your finger, I've also, especially if I'm doing like a lot of trays, I want something that I can just very quickly just kind of poke. I'll use the end of a bamboo stick. All right. Now, when it comes to seed spacing and thinning, this is something I don't pay as much attention to. It's really up to you. It depends on how you are growing yours. I start mine like in these little 6-packs. I was starting them in smaller little cubes. I don't really want to get up to get one of my other trays right now. The problem I was running into is I was almost starting too many seeds, and then it was taking me so long to get everything transplanted that I was falling behind, and I'm a one-woman show here. So I do the 6-packs, and then they'll graduate from that up to a 3.5-inch container, and then from that up to 1 gallon. If I'm going to keep growing them in containers, like my peppers and my tomatoes and eggplants, I grow them in 5-gallon root pouch bags, the fabric grow bags. For everything else, it's going to go from like lettuce. I don't even bother putting it in a 3.5. It stays in the 6-pack, and then it goes in the garden. My squashes and things that I want to harden off a little bit more, I'll plant them up to the 3.5-inch container, and then I'll put them in the garden. Oh, so what I end up doing is, because I'm starting with a very small space anyway, I just do 1, maybe 2 seeds per well. And when I go to plant them up, transplant them, if I have 2 seedlings growing in one well, I'll very carefully separate them out so that I try to keep all of my seedlings. Unless obviously they're just not gonna do well. And even then I may transplant them just to see what happens. Because sometimes you'll have some that are just late to emerge, and then if all the other seedlings around them came up, they don't get as much light and nutrients as those plants that have already established themselves. But once you transplant them and you give them more space and they're able to get better light, then they end up taking off. If you kind of see behind me, when I'm transplanting my seedlings, any of the ones that are taller, I put them in the back, so that way I can put my shorter seedlings up front and they can still get as much sunlight as the taller seedlings that are in the back. And I may need to rotate that around. I'll swap them out. I just kind of keep an eye on them depending on what I need to do. All right, so, but otherwise, if you are going to do, say, 2 or 3 seeds per hole, then you want to make sure that you are thinning them out, so you end up only with 1 plant per whatever the spacing is. So for this basil, it's saying you actually want 12 inches between your mature plants, because they can get pretty big. I feel like there was something else. Do you guys have any questions? I know I've got people watching, but feel free to ask me any questions as I go along. Even if you just want to chime in and say, hey, I'm watching from wherever, tell me what you got growing, whatever. Feel free to comment. Oh my gosh, there was something else. I know and I'm over my time limit. All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I know there's something else that I want to talk about. I will talk about it tomorrow. It's really bugging me that I don't remember what it was right now. Shoot. All right. What am I planting right now? Karen is also, Karen, are you 9B? You're a little bit south of me. She's also in Florida. So right now, I do have Everglade tomatoes. I'm actually working on getting my hands on some more Everglade tomato seeds so I can get some more of those seedlings going. I'm going to direct sow okra. We're still filling our bags on our potatoes, but those will be ready to harvest in a month. I'm going to start loofah seeds. What else? Yard-long beans. I'm trying to think. I still think I want to grow some watermelon just for me. Oh, Seminole pumpkins. That's the other thing. Yeah, you're 9B. Yeah, Seminole pumpkins are the other thing I want to get going. I haven't done them in a couple of years, and they just produce so well. And I have such a hard time with every other kind of squash. So they are a Florida native. The yard-long beans have done really well for me, so I'm going to have at least 1 trellis of those going. And I got to figure out what I'm going to trellis the loofah on, because those get big too. Seminole pumpkins, I'm just going to let go along the ground. And I do have a sweet potato that I'm taking slips off of so I can grow sweet potatoes. I think that's really, I've got my peppers. I've got eggplants actually producing really well right now. I know, we're so limited on what we can actually grow in the summer. Floradade, Floradade. I have plenty of seedlings if you want some. You can place a pickup order on the Kitchen Botanicals website. I've got pineapples. I really feel like I'm forgetting something. I think I've had too much cold medicine today. I think that's what's wrong. All right. And I'm not drinking a beer because I'm already so dehydrated. So, this is going to bug the heck out of me what else I want to talk about, and I'm suddenly drawing a complete blank. All right. Like I said, I'm going to go. I will remember whatever it was I was supposed to tell you guys. I'm going to write it down, and then I will have that in my video tomorrow. So I'll see you guys later. Oh, and happy early Easter. Yes, I'm still going to do a video because what else am I going to do? Have a good one. Love you guys.